For over a century, scientists believed they knew the story of when humans first set foot in the Americas. The textbooks all agreed. About 13,000 years ago, a group known as the Clovis people crossed an ice-free land bridge into what is now Alaska. That was supposed to be the beginning. But in the deserts of New Mexico, researchers have uncovered something that destroys that timeline completely.
For decades, the dominant story was clear. Humans arrived in North America around 13,000 years ago, crossing a land bridge from Siberia into Alaska during the last ice age. These people, known as the Clovis culture, were believed to be the first. But the footprints discovered at White Sands National Park in New Mexico tell a radically different tale. According to the latest dating methods, they are more than 20,000 years old. Some studies even push them back to nearly 23,000 years. If true, this means humans were living, walking, and hunting in North America thousands of years before the ice-free corridor even existed. The discovery, made in 2009, began when a team of scientists noticed faint impressions emerging from a dried-up lake bed. At first, they seemed almost too perfect. Lines of human footprints, small and large, stretching across the surface. Some belonged to children, others to adults. Nearby, the prints of giant sloths and mammoths crisscrossed their path. It was as if time itself had frozen a moment from the deep past, capturing humans and Ice Age megafauna together in the same tableau. But here's where the story gets truly astonishing. Using radiocarbon dating of seeds embedded in the layers above and below the prints, researchers initially placed them at 23,000 years old. Critics pushed back, arguing the dating was flawed, that the seeds might have been contaminated, or that wind and water could have displaced the layers. For years, the debate raged. Were these really the oldest human footprints in the Americas, or just a misinterpretation? In 2023, a breakthrough came. Scientists applied new dating methods, including optically stimulated luminescence, which measures the last time grains of quartz were exposed to sunlight. The results confirmed the earlier findings. The footprints were indeed ancient, between 21,000 and 23,000 years old. The evidence was undeniable. Humans were here deep in North America, long before the Clovis people. This revelation doesn't just rewrite a chapter of history, it tears up the entire script. If people were in New Mexico 23,000 years ago, how did they get there? The ice sheets covering Canada would have blocked any inland migration, which means the earliest Americans may have arrived along the Pacific coast, traveling by boat, hugging the shorelines, and slowly moving southward. This kelp highway theory, once considered fringe, is now gaining powerful support. The footprints also tell us something more intimate. These weren't just wanderers passing through. The sheer number of prints, hundreds, stretching across the ancient lakebed, suggests a community. Families, perhaps, gathering water, hunting animals, or even playing along the muddy shore. One striking set of tracks shows a child's footprints walking alongside an adult, then doubling back as if carried. Another shows a human print directly inside the footprint of a giant sloth, suggesting a hunter stalking its prey. These are not just traces in the dirt. They are echoes of lives lived. And yet, the implications ripple even further. If humans were thriving in New Mexico 23,000 years ago, then their ancestors must have entered the continent even earlier. Some archaeologists suggest the first wave of migration could stretch back 25,000 or even 30,000 years. If proven, this would shatter the long-standing Clovis first paradigm and force us to rethink not only when, but how humans spread across the globe. Still, questions linger. Why do we find so few archaeological sites this old? Did rising seas swallow early coastal settlements? Have we simply not looked in the right places? And most haunting of all, who were these people? Were they the direct ancestors of modern indigenous communities? Or a lost lineage whose story has been erased by time? What makes the White Sands footprints so powerful is their humanity. Unlike stone tools or scattered bones, footprints are personal. They show hesitation, play, pursuit. They reveal children laughing, adults working, hunters risking their lives against beasts 10 times their size. They remind us that history is not just dates and theories. It is lived experience, pressed into the earth, waiting for us to uncover it. Even now, more prints are being uncovered at White Sands, hundreds of them, mapping out paths, interactions, and moments that otherwise would have been forgotten. Each new footprint adds another brushstroke to a portrait of life in Ice Age America. But with every answer, new mysteries arise. How many waves of migration were there? How far did these early people travel? And how did they adapt to a land so unforgiving, filled with predators and dominated by glaciers? One thing is certain. The footprints of White Sands prove that human history is far older, richer, and more complex than we once believed. They show us that the Americas were not a late destination in the human journey, but part of its earliest chapters. And as more evidence emerges, we may soon discover that the story of our arrival is only beginning to be told. The discovery of North America's oldest human footprints already forces us to rewrite the story of our origins. But what if the past holds something even more unsettling? Some scientists now claim they've uncovered the tomb of the last Anunnaki king, and what they found inside has left them terrified.
Noah is actually a term that was given as a biblical term. He was actually the very last of these pre-Diluvian kings of one of these original 5 cities of Sumer.
Are we looking at the traces of a forgotten episode in human history? I think so. I think that's what's going on here.
Would it be fair to say that there's an element of a rediscovery of a
Yes.
lost technology from the past?
I think it would be fair to say that, yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered about the legend of King Gilgamesh and the ancient city he ruled? Let's dive into a time machine and head back to around 2700 BCE, right into the heart of Mesopotamian civilization, during what scholars call the early dynastic period.
I would prefer to propose, and I have proposed, that what we're looking at is evidence of some kind of transfer of technology, that people came into that area who had other knowledge.
This was an era when city-states were popping up all over Mesopotamia, marking some of the earliest complex societies in human history. And right there, in the thick of it, was Gilgamesh, a name that echoes through history not just as a king but as a figure of myth and epic tales. Gilgamesh's realm was none other than Uruk, a jewel among the Sumerian city-states, nestled in the fertile lands along the Euphrates River in what we now know as modern-day Iraq.
This is a very neglected area of the world as far as deep and ancient archaeology goes.
Picture this, a bustling urban center alive with the hum of marketplaces, the grandeur of massive temple complexes, and the imposing presence of the legendary Uruk wall, said to be built by Gilgamesh himself.
It's interesting that the patterns are geometrical. Someone made it, and it involved a very large amount of organized labor in order to make it. There had to be the will and the intent in order to do that.
Uruk wasn't just any city. It was a beacon of culture, economy, and innovation, credited with many firsts in human civilization, including the invention of cuneiform writing. But what was life like under King Gilgamesh's rule? Imagine a leader who was more than just a man. He was a figure of divine significance, believed to be responsible for the welfare and prosperity of his people. Under his leadership, Uruk flourished, becoming a center for religious devotion, particularly for the worship of Inanna, a major deity in the Sumerian pantheon. Gilgamesh's Uruk was a city that represented the zenith of Sumerian engineering, architecture, and social organization, boasting a population that highlighted its status as one of the world's largest cities at the time. During his reign, Gilgamesh would have been the linchpin in the city's governance, overseeing administrative decisions, religious practices, and military campaigns to safeguard Uruk's interests. His leadership likely saw the construction of monumental projects that not only enhanced the city's splendor, but also its defenses, ensuring Uruk's prominence in the annals of ancient history.
If we're only looking for a mere reflection of ourselves, we could overlook it completely. I think we're getting very close to rediscovering some of the things that our ancient ancestors were up to.
Diving into the sands of time, the figure of King Gilgamesh stands as a fascinating blend of myth and reality, a character who has intrigued historians and archaeologists alike. While the line between the legendary and the historical is often blurred, there's a handful of archaeological breadcrumbs that lead us back to the possibility of Gilgamesh's actual existence in ancient Mesopotamian civilizations. First off, let's talk about the Sumerian king list. This isn't your average historical document. It's more like a mashup of history and mythology, listing rulers of Sumer and their reign lengths. What's cool about this list is that our guy Gilgamesh makes an appearance. His name popping up among other rulers gives us a hint that maybe, just maybe, he was a real figure who ruled, and wasn't just a character in ancient bedtime stories. The fact that there are several versions of this list, found in different places and from various times, shows that keeping track of their leaders was pretty important to the Sumerians, and that Gilgamesh was a significant part of that record. Then there are the inscriptions and artifacts. Imagine finding a tablet or a cylinder seal with Gilgamesh's name carved into it. These bits and pieces don't give us the full picture of his reign, but do suggest he was recognized as a king. These items, scattered across ancient Sumerian sites like breadcrumbs, hint at the long-lasting memory of Gilgamesh, underlining his status not just as a myth but as a cultural icon. But here's where it gets tricky. Trying to separate the man from the myth in Gilgamesh's story is like trying to untangle a finely knotted rope. The archaeological evidence we have doesn't lay out his life story or list his achievements in detail. Instead, it teases us with glimpses, leaving us wondering about the reality of his reign. This scarcity of clear-cut historical records makes Gilgamesh an enigmatic figure, shrouded in the mists of time. Despite these challenges, the evidence we do have is precious. It bridges the gap between legend and history, suggesting that Gilgamesh might have been more than just a character in an epic tale. Diving into the ancient world, let's explore one of the oldest stories ever told, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Picture this: clay tablets, etched with cuneiform, the very first writing system cooked up by the ingenious Sumerians. This epic isn't just a tale, it's a journey back to the 3rd dynasty of Ur, around 2100 BCE, though its roots stretch back even further through earlier Sumerian poems about our hero Gilgamesh. The story of Gilgamesh came to light in the modern era thanks to 19th century archaeologists rummaging through the ruins of Nineveh's library. Imagine piecing together a jigsaw puzzle of ancient clay fragments, each piece a window into the epic's soul-stirring narrative. Sure, some parts are missing, lost to time, but what remains is a testament to human creativity and spirit. Now onto Gilgamesh himself. This guy was not your average ancient king. Described as 2/3 god and 1/3 human, he was a force to be reckoned with. His divine lineage gave him superhuman strength and courage, setting him leagues apart from mere mortals and even other mythical heroes. The epic's narrative is a roller coaster of adventures and quests, showcasing Gilgamesh's thirst for glory and eternal fame. Take his trek to the cedar forest to defeat Humbaba, for example. It's the stuff of legends, a clear display of his heroism. Yet, it's the death of his friend Enkidu that turns his world upside down, launching him on a quest for immortality and leading him to confront the harsh truth of human mortality. Speaking of Enkidu, his friendship with Gilgamesh is nothing short of transformative. Enkidu, created by the gods from the wild to temper Gilgamesh's arrogance, ends up becoming his soulmate. Their bond is a powerful narrative force, illustrating how deep connections can foster personal growth and lead to profound realizations about life and oneself. At its core, the Epic of Gilgamesh is rich with themes that resonate deeply with the human experience. It's a tale of the relentless search for fame and the universal quest for immortality, only to find that death is an inescapable part of life. The story underscores the importance of friendship and how it shapes our journey towards understanding and accepting our humanity. In the whirlwind adventure that is the Epic of Gilgamesh, we're treated to some of the most captivating encounters between a mortal and the divine you'll find anywhere in ancient literature. Gilgamesh's quest is not just a tale of heroism and the search for eternal life, it's a deep dive into the complex dance between gods and humans in Mesopotamian culture. Take, for instance, Gilgamesh's meeting with Utnapishtim, the ancient world's version of Noah. Imagine sitting down with someone who survived a world-ending flood, all because a god gave him the heads up to build a boat. This isn't just an incredible survival story, it's a pivotal moment for Gilgamesh. He's on a quest for immortality, and here's Utnapishtim, living proof that the gods can grant such a wish. The story of the Great Flood, where the gods decide to reboot humanity but spare Utnapishtim, mirrors the power the Anunnaki wield in Mesopotamian myths, making life and death decisions over humanity's fate. Gilgamesh's journey is peppered with divine interactions that really make you think about the ancient Mesopotamian view of the cosmos. There's Enkidu, Gilgamesh's partner in crime, who was literally made by a goddess because the gods felt Gilgamesh needed to tone it down a bit. Then there's Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, who doesn't take rejection well. After Gilgamesh turns her down, she sends a celestial bull to Rakshop as payback. And let's not forget about Humbaba, the fearsome guardian of the cedar forest, appointed by the god Enlil. Gilgamesh and Enkidu's battle with Humbaba isn't just an epic fight scene, it's a narrative about human ambition clashing with divine intent. Throughout his quests, Gilgamesh keeps in touch with the sun god Shamash, who's like a divine mentor, offering guidance and support. It's fascinating to see this godly figure taking an active interest in Gilgamesh's endeavors. Even Gilgamesh's mom, Ninsun, gets in on the divine action. Though she's more of a minor goddess, her interventions on her son's behalf highlight the intimate relationship between the gods and Gilgamesh, blurring the lines between the celestial and the terrestrial. Heading back into mesmerizing world of ancient Mesopotamia, and you'll encounter the Anunnaki, a group of deities whose stories weave through the heart of Sumerian and Akkadian mythology. These mythologies, among the oldest in human history, share a fascinating pantheon of gods, with the Anunnaki holding a special place. Interestingly, over time, some Anunnaki began to be associated with celestial bodies. This transition highlights their growing significance in Mesopotamian astrology and cosmology, where the movements of stars and planets were seen as divine messages. The identification of certain Anunnaki with the sun, moon, and Venus, for example, lent these celestial bodies a sacred significance, connecting the dots between the heavens and the divine drama of the gods.